Welcome to Drawing with Miss Nicole. Today we are going to draw a garden gnome and add a little bit of color after we're done. The great thing about this little gnome is that you can change it for any season and make it your own. Alright, so let's get started with a pencil, and you can use anything to end up coloring this in. I would also recommend having an eraser and a pencil sharpener just in case, because things always seem to break and tips get dull quickly, so I'd recommend having those. And then you can color it in with paint, colored pencils, watercolors, crayons, markers, whatever you have. So what we're going to do is start with a clean sheet of paper, and we're going to start with the gnome's nose. So we're going to work with the things that are closest to us, and we're going to make an oval or a circle, and this is going to be his nose. Then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of outline where the top of his hat is going to be, and he's just going to have some little eyes peeking through, so we don't need a whole lot of space. So this looks like a little wave going over his nose. It kind of follows the same shape. It can be a little lumpy, it doesn't matter. It's going to be part of his hat, and so it's okay if it's a little bit lumpy. Mine will probably have to come down further, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw on his beard. And we want his beard to be big and scruffy and hang all the way to the ground. So I have a little bit of jaggedness across here as I go down. And then I'm going to make it not real straight and curve around. So wherever your beard ends up down here is going to be around where the ground is. The beard might go a little bit longer than the shoes. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Sometimes you never know with gnome beards. Okay, so I'm stopping with this curve because we're going to go back up here and make the other half of his beard. And I want to see where it's going to connect. And then I'll connect at that tip instead of going backwards. And then we'll go around there, and he has a little curl in the tip of his beard because it's so long. Now, I don't quite like this edge right here, so I'm going to erase, which is why we're doing this in pencil, and then erasing. Okay, and make that a little bit fuller there. All right, so I would like the top of his hat to touch down here, or you can make a little line. Then the next thing we're going to do is, actually, we'll move down here. We're going to do his shoulders. We want to know where his shoulders are going to be before we put his hat, because it'll be sitting behind him. So we're going to start his shoulders kind of parallel to the bottom of his nose. So if you go to the bottom of his nose, that circle there, and you go over, you're going to come out on both sides like that. And then this is his shoulder. We're coming down his arm, and then we're going to make his elbow and bring the rest of his sleeve under his arm. So we're putting his hands under here behind his beard because, well, let's face it, hands are hard. They're hard for Miss Nicole too, unless that's the only part I'm really focusing on. So we're just going to hide his hands behind his beard to make it easier for all of us. And then we'll go down this side and make his shoulder. All right, so we'll come back up here, and we're going to do the brim of his hat. Wearing a big hat, so this is going to be the brim. It's going to kind of follow along. I'm making mine a little bit lumpy and connect to the other side, so it follows that line. Then we're going to make the top, and I'm going to just show you invisibly with my pencil. It's going to go up here, down behind his shoulder, come out here off to the side, and then we'll bring it up. So, and this is going to be a lumpy part of the hat too. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. He's been working out in the garden, so it's not real well kept and managed because he's been working. Let's see, follow my line. My line's going to go out here. I'm going to make a little tail, and then we're going to add a little poof at the end. So my little poof, you can make yours a little circle. Mine's turning out a circle. Sometimes I just make them like it's long fuzz and it's just hanging off there. Okay, so we have that. So now we need his bottom half. We're going to make his pants on either side. We're going to make a short line Doesn't have to be straight. It's actually better if it's a little wavy. And then we're going to make the tops of his pants right there. And then a little off to the side on that side. This side we don't see the other cuff, so we're going to leave that be. This one is going to come down. Actually, we do see a little bit of the cuff. He can have really wide pants. Okay, and then on this side, and we'll probably have to extend these, but we want to see where his shoes are going to be first. So his shoes are going to kind of look like little potatoes just sitting there. Not a lot of detail, little ovals, but we want the bottom flat, so flatten that out. And then we need to connect that right there and this here. Okay, and actually, I want to cover up this space in the middle, so I'm going to make my beard a little bit wider. That's the fantastic thing about using a plain pencil, is that you can fix things before you end up coloring in. I'm going to make that a little bit wider too. There we go. Okay, so now we have the basic shape of our gnome and basic things filled in. So then we're going to put in some eyes. 2 little ovals up here right above his nose, or they can be sitting on his nose. We're going to add a little bit of curves to his jacket. So 2 little V's on either side, one sticking out that way, one that way. We're going to give him some pockets in his pants, and that's just going to be a little rounded edge. Start up near his shirt, go all the way to his pants. And then on the rim of his hat, just put a couple little lines. And these you could wait and do when you were coloring it too. Okay, so those are all my major lines. Then what I'm going to do is start to add color. So I think I'll start with his shirt. Oh, there was something else I was going to do. I was going to add a little flower in his hat, because he's been out in the garden. He's a little garden gnome. Just a little flower sticking out of his hat. And you can add whatever kind of little garden-y things you think of, spring things. I've done Christmas ones, like this one, where I put a little holly around. So we can add whatever colors we would like. I still think I'm sticking with the blue shirt. So I'm going to start to color. I'm going to use colored pencils, and the brand I'm using is Prismacolor. Is that right? Yes, Prismacolor. I have a bunch of different ones, but I prefer these. We're just going to color a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit of shading, so that way you don't have just one solid color for it. Because you can use one blue, and I could go back and I could just press really, really hard like this, and I can make some shadows. But I'm actually going to use another blue to make some shadowing. And the other gnome I just showed you, I used watercolors to paint that one. I'm going to do this just to make it symmetrical. I can go over it again. Alright, I'm going to use a slightly darker blue. And I'm just going to use this blue and lightly blend in to the bottom of his sleeves just to show there's more shadow. And I'm going closer to where his beard is to show that it's on top, to create a shadow there. I'm going to do that on this side as well. And then I'm going to add a little shadow in here where the creases are. And a little bit on that side too. And by pressing harder and lighter, I can blend it a little more into the 2 blues. Alright, so then next I'm going to go down to the pants, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to choose 2 different browns, maybe even some black, because I might outline some of his pockets. Alright, so I'm going to use my first brown, which is a little lighter brown, and I'm going to color all of his pants. I'm going to do that cuff right there too. Okay, so I have all of it colored, that one shade. Now I'm going to use a different one, and I'm going to color inside the pockets, make them a little darker so they stand out. Both sides, add some in it. Since I went over with the first color, it will blend in nicely. Let's see, and then I'm going to do kind of behind his beard here, because his beard is showing, throwing a shadow on that side too. And I'm going to do along the bottom near his shoes. Like that. I'm just going to blend it in a little bit more, put some over top of this cuff, and a little under his belt, or where his arms crossed. Okay, and then I'm going to even take some black, and I'm going to darken just the very inside of his pocket a little bit more so it's easier to see. And then a little bit by his cuff of his pants. Maybe a little bit over here on the bottom too. Okay, his shoes. I think I'm gonna make his shoes maybe a grayish color. I might change that to green. I'm just gonna even them out. But you're gonna pick at least 2 of the same shades of for his shoes. I am going to change it to green. Okay, that's better. All right, and I went for a darker green first. But with this, I'm just going to make sure I leave the tops of his shoes with a white oval there, since I went with the darker color first. And go a little bit across the top here, near there, the side of his beard. Make the bottom of his shoes really dark by pressing down, or if you have a different green that's even darker, you could use that, or whatever shade you're using. All right, then I'm going to come back with a lighter green and just kind of blend in to that white circle. His boots are shiny, so they have a nice white reflection. Okay, so let's see. What color would I like his hat? I think I would like his hat to be orange. I don't normally go for orange. It's not one of my favorite colors, but I feel like with the colors I have going on, and it's not a bright orange, it's more of a yellowy orange. So this will be my lighter color. And I'm coloring the whole thing. I'm just doing the top half first. Coloring it all in. And take my time quite as much so you can see the direction of my strokes as I'm laying the color down. Put that in. This time I'm kind of going with the direction I want the ribbing to go. Okay, so doesn't look like I have a darker orange, so I'm gonna go with a reddish brown. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of shading behind his elbow here, a little bit of shading above his shoulder and where the cuff overlaps, because this part is kind of folded back behind him, so there would be more shadow there. And then I want it pretty light all on the top of here, but I'm gonna put some shadowing and ribbing, so you know where there's elastic, or it's, depending how it's made, it has lines going in it. And I'm making these different heights and blending them a little bit into the orangey yellow color. Blending. Okay, and I do want the brim of the hat to stand out, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of the darker color up here just so it pops a little bit more. But I want to leave it light all around the top. Okay, so then I'm gonna do his face. And I'm going to use a very, very pale peachy color. I'm going to do his nose too. With this, if you don't have a second peachy color to make any shadow, you can very lightly press with your pencil for this layer and then go back and just press harder to do a shadow under the rim of his hat. So that way it shows a little shadow in there. While we're working right there, I am going to make his eyes actually black instead of just the pencil. And I'm going to put a little bit of shadow right under his nose, which I think I grabbed a different peach. So a little under there. Since I have a different one, I'm going to put it over here. Okay, and then the last thing is, oh no, not the last thing. We have his little flower. I think I'm going to make it a pink flower. Red would have looked nice too with the colors that I have, but I'm going to go with pink. And I could get real fancy with the flower. I could add darker veins in here too. I'm just going to go with standard pink there. Going to retrace my line with some green. Okay, now last step for me for the gnome is I'm going to just add a little bit of gray feathering with my silver colored pencil, because I don't seem to have a gray in my mix. So I'm just making a couple little lines that show the direction that his beard is going. A little bit under his nose here. You could just leave this white if you wanted to, or you can make it bright red. You can make it whatever color you would like, whatever color gnome beard your gnome has. I would just probably not recommend brown if you did brown pants, otherwise it'll fade into them, or a completely different shade or tone of it as well. And I'm going to go ahead and put a couple little fluff pieces in here. And that finishes our gnome. If you want just a few extra little tricks, instead of having your gnome floating on your paper, you can add a little bit of dirt underneath him. Just real quick with any darker brown. That way it doesn't look like he's floating. You could do that. You can put any kind of things next to him. I'll put a couple little flower stems. You can add whatever you want. You can do a full-on background. Maybe he's actually in the garden or in a greenhouse or something like that. That would be fun. Let's see. My pink. And for these, you could always go back, and if you need to use your pencil, figure out where they go. I'm just going to quickly put some in so you can see. And I'm just doing pink to kind of tie all these together. You could do any variety you wanted. And there we go. Our little gnome, garden gnome, is all finished. So, and this can go with so many different things, seasons. Gnomes are all the rage. All right, well, thank you for painting with me or drawing with me, and I hope you have a great time being creative, and I'd love to see your artwork, and have a good day.